Welcome, everyone. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through today's explainer because honestly, we are about to embark on a truly massive, mind bending journey together. We're going to track the origins of existence itself, and I mean, starting from the absolute dawn of reality, all the way down to a very, very personal question: what is the actual meaning of your life? If you've ever found yourself looking up at the night sky and wondering how physical matter could possibly emerge from a purely conceptual void, or on a much more practical level, why you have this inherent, undeniable drive to get out of bed, to grow, to create, well, you are exactly in the right place. We're going to unpack some incredibly profound metaphysical frameworks today, and we're going to take our time with it to really absorb these concepts. I promise you by the end of this, you are going to look at the universe around you and your own everyday choices completely differently. So, here is our roadmap for the journey. 1. The illusion of nothingness. 2. The beginning thing. 3. Actualization of potential. 4. Metaphysics of creation. 5. Limits of science and parascience. And finally, 6. The ultimate purpose. Okay, let's dive right into this with section 1, the illusion of nothingness. I want to start by challenging a really basic assumption that we almost all make. What would happen if absolutely nothing existed? Take a second to actually picture that. Most of us immediately imagine an empty black void, right? Like a dark, quiet room. But here is the massive logical trap we fall into. In a world of pure, absolute nothingness, there is no observer. And without an observer, there isn't a mind to even confirm that the nothingness is there. So the absolute bare minimum requirement for reality to even be valid is that something must exist to observe it. Think deeply about how we actually define absence. If you remove all physical matter from an area, you're left with the concept of empty space. If you completely remove energy, you're left with the concept of absolute zero. Every single attempt we humans make to describe absolute nothingness relies entirely on borrowing the geometry or the concept of the very thing that is absent. You literally cannot conceptualize nothing without first establishing a firm baseline of something. Nothingness isn't a real state, it's merely a relational placeholder for us. Because of that, true absolute nothingness is logically impossible. It's a complete illusion. This means the beginning state of reality was never a state of absolute non-existence. Instead, it had to be what we call an undifferentiated existence. Everything existed simultaneously, but purely in potential form. It's kind of like white light. White light contains every single color on the spectrum all at once, so to our eyes it appears completely blank or featureless. The dawn of reality was exactly like that. It was a boundless, unbroken, infinite canvas of pure possibility. The source material captures this so beautifully with a poem. What is nothing? Just a veil. A canvas white for truth to sail. If thought can birth it, it must be. In mind, in dream, in destiny. If a thought can even conceptualize something, the potential for that thing must exist somewhere, which naturally leads us to ask, whose mind is actually holding this infinite canvas? That brings us to section 2, the beginning thing. Zooming out to the absolute macro scale, we arrive at what is termed the beginning thing. Since we've established that something must exist, and since physical things require the pre-existence of space and time, the very first foundational entity had to be entirely non-physical. It is the uncaused cause. It exists everywhere uniformly. It's completely independent of space, independent of time, and exists as pure, self-aware primal consciousness. This consciousness is the grand progenitor of existence and truth itself. It doesn't reside in a location. It is the location. Let's move to section 3, actualization of potential. Now, this raises a really vital question. If this primal consciousness is completely perfect, completely self-contained, and infinite, why on earth would it create anything at all? Why not just remain in eternal, peaceful stillness? Well, the answer lies in a concept called the actualization of potential, or AOP. Think about it. If infinite potential has the capacity for change, that change must eventually happen. Otherwise, it's not truly infinite potential, is it? AOP is the inevitable, natural unfolding of moving from a state of pure, unexperienced possibility into an actual, lived, known reality. So creation is not just some random, accidental spark in the dark. It is the necessary resolution of a massive tension. It is the exact moment when potential literally snaps into a definite, physical reality simply because it could no longer remain purely possible. To pull this off, that infinite, undivided whole essentially partitions itself into billions of individual, fractal units of consciousness, units exactly like you and me. We act as simultaneous creators and experiencers, all so that this vast abstract potential can finally be intimately known and felt. Let's take a quick reflective pause with another beautiful excerpt here. You breathed out time, and space awoke. From stillness burst the primal stroke. With elements and entropies dance, you shaped the stage of circumstance. It sets up our next leap so perfectly. We now understand the why of creation, the inherent need to experience potential. But how do you actually get a tangible, heavy, physical universe out of pure, formless thought? That takes us right into Section 4, Metaphysics of Creation. Now, this part completely flips our everyday understanding of reality on its head. We usually think of creation as an act of addition, right? Like adding a 1 to a 0 or putting a chair into an empty room. But in this metaphysical framework, creation is actually a process of subtraction. Existence emerges by chiseling away infinite potential until a single, distinct, specific form remains. It is exactly like a master sculptor chipping away at a giant block of marble. The universe is created by consciousness actively choosing to focus on specific limitations, carving a highly precise, physical reality out of an endless block of possibility. This carving process follows 5 conceptual steps, which remarkably mirror ancient philosophical traditions. First, space, or akasha, is imagined to give things a place to exist. Second, movement, or vayu, is introduced, bringing in time and kinetic energy. Third is radiation, or agni, an expansive force pushing outward. Fourth is magnetism, or jala, which is a centripetal force pulling things back inward. And finally, the delicate balance between that outward push and inward pull creates the 5th step, form, solid physical matter, or prithvi. Every single layer of our physical world is just superimposed information being processed and rendered by a perceiving consciousness. It's incredibly similar to how binary code gives rise to a fully immersive virtual reality video game. To actually render this physical VR screen of reality, consciousness has to do something wild. It essentially has to play dead. It creates a unit known as a frozen. Think of a frozen as a tiny piece of frozen consciousness. By willfully ignoring everything else and focusing entirely on being a stationary, limited reference point, consciousness literally freezes portions of itself. These vibrating, frozen points become the fundamental building blocks of all matter, space, and time. I know, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi novel, but fundamentally, physical matter is just consciousness engaged in an act of extreme, frozen focus. Which leads us to Section 5, Limits of Science and Parascience. So here is the big epistemological problem. Once we are fully immersed inside this physical, frozen video game of reality, how do we properly study its non-physical roots? Physical science is an incredibly powerful tool, absolutely, but it has strict boundaries. Our current scientific instruments can only record a highly limited, narrow band of the electromagnetic spectrum. If our tools rely entirely on physical phenomena to work, they literally cannot detect non-physical consciousness. And, as the old saying goes, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Just because a physical telescope cannot see a thought doesn't mean the thought isn't real. This limitation brings us to a necessary evolution in how we gather knowledge. Physical science is fantastic. It relies on objective instrumentation and repeatable physical data. But to study things like the soul, deep intent, and universal meaning, we need a complementary framework. The source material calls this parascience. Now, parascience does not mean abandoning logic, not at all. Rather, it relies on highly disciplined subjective observation, very careful pattern mapping, and compiling coherent truths across multiple independent human experiences. And parascience maintains immense scientific rigor because it doesn't just blindly accept any subjective claim someone makes. Subjective evidence has to pass through strict, intense filters to be considered valid. For instance, you have to filter out deceit by thoroughly verifying a person's motive. You also have to filter out simple hallucination by checking the physical brain state of the observer. Only when subjective data survives these rigorous, structured filters do we get an acceptable, unified scientific epistemology that's actually capable of studying the non-physical realm of consciousness. And finally, Section 6, the ultimate purpose. Let's bring all this grand, cosmic metaphysics all the way down to you, the individual, and your daily life. Our physical universe features a built-in baseline of entropy. Entropy is just a natural tendency towards chaos, decay, and uniformity. But here's the beautiful part. This entropy is actually the ultimate canvas for your free will, because any effort you make in your life is a deliberate, powerful rebellion against that chaos. Your highest purpose, the reason you are here, is actualizing potential. We measure that actualization through growth. We achieve it through self-expression, which is your personal act of creation, and we expand it through exploration, which is your experience of the world. Creating order, meaning, and beauty out of raw chaos is quite literally what you were designed to do as a fractal piece of this universe. As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this provocative thought to deeply ponder. If pure biology was all there is to this reality, then simple survival would be enough. But ask yourself, is Mirror's survival really your ultimate purpose? Or are we, as individual, self-aware units of primal consciousness, here to actively push against the void? Are we here to create, to grow, and to fundamentally actualize potential? Think deeply about how you are using your own free will to carve your specific reality out of the infinite today. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep exploring, keep growing, and I will see you next time.